May I sit here? I look at spiders and butterflies. I watch caterpillars and moths. Sometimes I think I'm the only one who notices these things. But if it hadn't been for a crowded cafeteria, I wouldn't have ever noticed Valerie. After all, I wasn't looking for new friends. Valerie was a new student. She walked to class with her books huddled against her chest and her head down. He talked only when the teacher asked her a question. After a month at our school, she hadn't made any friend. At recess, she sat on a bench and read. If you asked who she was, you'd get a response like this: "She's in my PE class, I can't remember her name." One day at lunch, I had nowhere to sit. Most tables were full, my friends scattered among them. But Valerie sat alone, book in hand. I walked over to her. "May I sit here?" I asked. "Sure," she said. The cafeteria was noisy, but silence hung between us. Valerie didn't seem to mind, but it drove me crazy. I searched my mind for things to say. "So," I said, "is that a good book?" Valerie gave me a small nod and went back to reading. "What's it about?" I asked, after several more agonizing seconds of silence. She looked at me, her eyes sparkling. "Well, it's called Eragon, and it's about a dragon. This boy, Eragon, finds this dragon egg when he goes hunting one day. He thinks it's a rock. The egg hatches and Eragon hides the dragon from his cousin and uncle until it gets too big." "That sounds cool," I said. I was about to ask her another question, but the bell rang. As I rushed out of the cafeteria, I called to Valerie, "See you later." "Yeah," she said, "see you later." She sounded doubtful. A couple of days later, I spotted Valerie looking for a place to sit at lunch. "Valerie, come here," I pointed to an empty chair. She sat down and pulled out her book. Everyone was talking about next week's talent show. "So, what are you going to do for the show?" my friend Aaron asked my friend Kelly. "Oh, I don't know, probably nothing," Kelly sighed. "What are you doing?" She pointed to Valerie. "Oh," Valerie put her book down. "I don't know. Maybe nothing." The week flew by. Before I knew it, I was sitting in the auditorium, listening to a group of girls sing the latest pop songs at the talent show. I was bored out of my life, and I wanted it to end so I could read Eragon. I'd checked it out at the library, then a shy girl walked on stage. I recognized her immediately. Valerie clutched a violin in one hand and a bow in the other. She stared to play. The notes formed a soft, sweet tune. Then it turned fast, then faster. The music stopped altogether before the tune retuned. Valerie ended the song with one hard, fast, loud note. The auditorium fell completely silent until we realized the music was finished. Still in a half-trance, we burst into applause. Valerie took a swift bow and walked off stage. I smiled to myself. Valerie wasn't just a quiet girl. She knew about wonderful books and could play the violin like nothing I'd ever heard. Like a caterpillar or butterfly, she was beautiful and amazing when you looked closely. With one small gesture. One day, when I was a freshman in high school, I saw a kid from my class walking home from school. His name was Kyle. It looked like he was carrying all of his books. I thought to myself, why would anyone bring home all his books on a Friday? He must really be a nerd. I had quite a weekend planned, parties and a football game with my friend tomorrow afternoon, so I shrugged my shoulders and went on. As I was walking, I saw a bunch of kids running toward him. They ran at him, knocking all his books out of his arms and tripping him so he landed in the dirt. His glasses went flying, and I saw them land in the grass about 10 feet from him. He looked up and I saw this terrible sadness in his eyes. So, I jogged over to him, and as he crawled around looking for his glasses, and I saw a tear in his eye. As I handed him his glasses, he said, "Those guys are jerks. They really should get lives." He looked at me and said, "Hey, thanks." There was a big smile on his face. It was one of those smiles that showed real gratitude. I helped him pick up his books, and asked him where he lived. As it turned out, he lived near me, so I asked him why I had never seen him before. He said he had gone to private school before now. We talked all the way home, and I carried his books. He turned out to be a pretty cool kid. I asked him if he wanted to play football on Saturday with my friends and me. He said yes. The more I got to know Kyle, the more I liked him. And my friends thought the same of him. Monday morning came, and there was Kyle with the huge stack of books again. I stopped him and said, "Dim boy, you are gonna really build some serious muscles with this pile of books every day." He just laughed and handed me half the books. Over the next 4 years, Kyle and I became the best friends. When we were seniors, we began to think about college. Kyle decided on Georgetown, and I was going to Duke. I knew that we would always be friends, that the miles would never be a problem. Kyle was valedictorian of our class. I teased him all the time about being a nerd. He had to prepare a speech for graduation. I was so glad it wasn't me having to get up there and speak. Graduation day, I saw Kyle. He looked great. He filled out and actually looked good in glasses. He had more dates than me and all the girls loved him. Boy, sometimes I was jealous. Today was one of those days. I could see that he was nervous about his speech. So, I smacked him on the back and said, "Hey, big guy, you'll be great." He looked at me with one of those looks, the really grateful one, and smiled. "Thanks," he said. As he started his speech, he cleared his throat, and began. Graduation is a time to thank those who helped you make it through those tough years. Your parents, your teachers, your siblings, maybe a coach, but mostly your friends. I am here to tell all of you that being a friend to someone is the best gift you can give him or her. I am going to tell you a story. I just looked at my friend with disbelief as he told the story of the first day we met. He had planned to kill himself over the weekend. He talked of how he had cleaned out his locker so his mom wouldn't have to do it later and was carrying his stuff home. He looked hard at me and gave me a little smile. Thankfully, I was saved. My friend saved me from doing the unspeakable. I heard the gasp go through the crowd as this handsome, popular boy told us all about his weakest moment. I saw his mom and dad looking at me and smiling that same grateful smile. Not until that moment did I realize its depth. Never underestimate the power of your actions. With one small gesture you can change a person's life. For better or for worse.